this is my 13th year. I'm just starting my 13th year right now. Drew Wild Health is a native owned and operated farm. We now have 30 acres, and last year we produced 8.25 tons of food to bring back into the Native community. We work with Native chefs, and we bring, this year we'll have 75 Native youth out there learning how to raise food, be chefs, take care of our traditional seeds, to be traditional seed keepers. We have like a native pollinator meadow, a native orchard, and then we have areas for growing out the traditional corn, bean, squash, melons, tobacco, things that were seeds that were passed on from generation to generation at Drew Wild Health. And then we rematriate those seeds back to the tribal communities that maybe haven't had those seeds for a long time. Maybe they're in museums or from archaeological sites, or were kept from individual seed savers. And then we do native food shares. Like today, after this, I'll be picking wild foods to put into food baskets to deliver to Native people in the Twin Cities area. I myself have been on quite a journey of sobriety and mental health healing. As a young age, I found out that I could find solace and comfort out in the woods, because inside the home wasn't ever easy. It was scary there. So my sister and I would spend a lot of time out in the woods. We were pretty far away from other humans. And then I came upon some really hard, struggling times where I had to deal with addiction myself. So now I have 35 years of sobriety. I do go to 12-step meetings, and I'm so thankful for that. I remember in the late 70s, early 80s, I had worked at a program called Division of Indian Work, the Youth Leadership Development Program for Native children. And part of my job was to get elders to come in and speak with the children. And I noticed that every time I go speak with elders, they brought up sobriety. And that just was really important to see that back in the 70s and the 80s, and to see that if those elders were teaching about health and medicine and healing, those elders were in sobriety. You have to be sober to get those kind of teachings. So that's something, a message that I'm so grateful that I received early on. Of course, it never is, well, I shouldn't say that. I didn't find it to be an easy thing to get and stay sober, but I'm so thankful that I have the 12 steps, 12 traditions, support in the community, the ceremonies. I mean, I believe in all of it, whatever tools that help me to be able to share my life experience with the young ones, with anybody that is struggling with that path. I'm so grateful that I've been given that gift of sobriety for the last 35 years. One thing that I've always done was ever since I was little, my mom would take my sister and I out picking. And I remember when I was little, it was usually food, but sometimes medicines. So as I got older, my mom would send me out to help elders. And she goes, hey, they need that plant. So sometimes they tell me it in Ojibwe, and then I could figure it out and learn more, so part of the way I was always paid back from elders was they would teach me. So I'm so thankful for that. And I still feel like what a gift that I still can be in that situation. So I truly believe there's different ways that being out in the woods, being around those plants, it's healing. So getting your hands in the dirt, we know there's microbes in the dirt that help our bodies get re-centered to being human bodies. And we know that those traditional systems were really healthy for our human bodies. One of the things I always talk to the young people about is that we knew, you look at that medicine wheel and you look at those 4 areas, we have to have some kind of a balance, and we have to honor our minds, our physical bodies, our spirits, and our emotions. And boy, to try to sit at that exact center, it's never easy on this earth plane. So in the language, I get to do a lot of prayers for different agencies, and you're always talking about Oma'aki here on this earth. Muzi Kamig, our Mother Earth, is always giving us these gifts. And every single plant has a gift of food, utility, medicine, and then all the green ones give the gift of breath. So in our old stories, I get to be a storyteller too. There was a elder from Red Lake, Minnesota that passed her Adazukanaga to me about 15 years ago, which means I have to carry those stories for the rest of my life. But in our stories, we're told we're the babies. The humans are the newcomers. Of course, you know, the sun, the moon, the earth, they've been here for so long. And then the plants next, and then the animals, and then the youngest are us. And we're the most likely to be foolish because we're such little babies. And we forget to look at our elders, the plants, the animals, the earth, the stars, the moon. We forget to look at our elders to find out what we're supposed to do while we're here on this earth. The other thing we hear of so often in our stories is that this society suffers from what they call Wendigo sickness. And the Wendigo is a cannibal spirit, a spirit of addiction. And it's an ice monster. And the more that monster eats, the bigger he gets. He gets so big that he eats his own lips. And it sort of talks to the idea of addiction to sex, addiction to alcohol, drugs, addiction to cigarettes, addiction to money, addiction to video games, addiction to technology, that addiction to wealth, that this whole society suffers from the addiction to where they injure themselves by living into that addiction and forgetting why are we really here. I love that the short form of the 12 steps is trust God, help others, and go to a meeting. So I hope you enjoy this video, and I will stick around if you want to ask questions. And I'm thankful that you all are on this path to learn more and talk to elders and find out about, you know, you always hear this in meetings too. You're like, how did you do it? So I've been fortunate my whole life. I've had a sober elder to go to. I still do. And you're like, holy cow, you're like 60, 64, right? And I'm like, yep. But I always have, it's almost like having a elder sponsor. So I've had one my whole life, and I'm so thankful for that. That means thank you for listening.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. All right, I'm going to share my screen and we'll play the video. Like I said, it's about 25 minutes long. So hang in and watch this lovely, they had a great day for a walk in the woods. And then we'll come back and have conversation, ask questions with Hope afterward. Okay, here we go.
Okay. Water, usually on a regular year, the water will wash through and clean off that area so that you only get pretty much one variety of plants or two variety of plants. This morning I've been working on a liver, what they call a liver cleanse. This is a good one for people who are detoxing off of drugs or alcohol. You take a cup in the morning and a cup at night. It's pretty mild, so you don't have to worry too much about like harming yourself, because these plants, we want to be thankful for them. Every single plant has a gift of food, utility, medicine, and anyone that's green has that gift of breath. And they're just as alive as we are. So in Ojibwe, you'll hear this, Nijibimadizik, our fellow living beings. Miogo Nijibimadizik. These are our fellow living beings. So for this liver cleanse that I'm working on right now, it's roots. So when you do root medicines, be sure before you ever pick anything, you're off of your sema, your tobacco. You can use your I know for me, I always do a lot of teachings about making your red willow tobacco, the inner bark of the red osier dogwood. And you make that usually in the wintertime when the sticks are really red. If you don't have that, maybe you use traditional tobacco that was grown from the tribal seeds, like from man to son to man to son. Or if all you have is like cigarette, you know, if that's the way you did it, that's fine too. You can learn as you're learning more and more. There's so much to learn about, even just tobacco. Oh my gosh. But this liver cleanse I'm talking about, you start with this, and in English you call this burdock. In Ojibwe you call it gawisagung, or it is peppery. So you want the root. So this is really a good one because you don't see it. It's a young one. You don't see the stick coming off. If you see the stick coming off, it might be woody. So you get a shovel, dig it up this time of year. So for root medicines, you either get them in the spring or in the fall. Now you could just eat that as a food, and you can nowadays at some of the co-ops, like I know at Seward Co-op, you can purchase the root and cook it up. In fact, years ago, I fed it to a bunch of tribal chairmen up at Treaty 3 area in Canada. It tastes good. It tastes like a woodsy carrot. But for us right now, if we're gonna make a kidney and liver cleanse for someone trying to stay off of drugs and alcohol, you're gonna get that root, split it. This time of year, either spring or fall, you can put it on a cookie sheet on low heat and dry it till it's crispy. And then like it'll break. So this one, gawisagung, means it is peppery because we used to use these leaves to wrap fish or ducks, and it will give them a flavor. You cook them under the ground in an underground oven. So if you want to make a blend for that particular medicine, you'd use the root of this and the root of this. You guys all know this one. So denta leon means teeth of the lion. It's not a native plant. Dandelions aren't native. They're that's a French term, teeth of the lion, because look at how those leaves look like teeth. They look like lion's teeth, you know. So I would pick this one because this plant is already busy. It's all of its energy is into making its flowers. So get it before it gets its flowers. In Ojibwe, we call it dudu shabu jibik, which means milk root. So you know how like when you break a dandelion, you'll see that it's milky and that latex is pretty bitter. You can use that to seal off a wart, you know, like put it on a wart. What you're doing, you're suffocating the wart. But for this purpose, you would dig these up before the flowers are out, get the root, slice it, put it on a cookie sheet, get it nice and dry, and then grind it up with the burdock root. So another one you could add to your mix that I'm doing, like I'm working on it this morning, is a plant they call curly dock, and we'll probably see that as we walk around here. Curly dock has a bright yellow root, and we always say, oh, it's trying to tell you it'll clean your urine, you know, because it does. It cleans your kidneys out. So same thing, get it before it flowers, dig up the root, slice it, put it on a cookie sheet, let it dry. Now you're gonna blend all three. Now just be careful, maybe your body doesn't like any of those. I have to be mindful about what does my body respond to. All of our bodies are different. Just like if you go to the doctor says, oh no, you got a reaction to penicillin. We want to be respectful and not say, oh, everybody can use this, or this is good for everybody. Feel those plants. Take some time and spend some time with the plants. Like, just spend time with them. That's going to help you calm down. It's going to help your sobriety, because it's going to help that time where you can listen, where they say in the big book, they say you will intuitively know how to handle situations that used to baffle you. That's what that's about. It's like a mini fasting time. I remember when I was younger going to different elders, and every single one of them that I knew that was working with the plants, they were sober, because you can't work with them. They've got spirits, right? And when you look at a bottle, it says spirits right on there. You put those spirits in your body, your spirit has to leave. So if you're going to be drinking or drugging, leave the plants alone for now, because they're not going to interact well with you. You've got to have a clear spirit for them to work with you well. So if you can, spend some time with them, get to know them, get calm, they're going to help you get calm. Like I remember having one friend of mine say up at Mishkawa's in powwow at the sobriety powwow, she said, if ever you have a hard time, go put your back up against those pine trees, because there's so many prayers around those pine trees. And I did. And oh my gosh, that anxiety, that depression, that tree and the earth just took that right away. So spend time with the trees, spend time with your mother, the earth. She doesn't want you to suffer. So this is a beautiful way to get some healing. Now there's all kinds of plants here that aren't native, but just because they're not native doesn't mean they don't give an amazing gift. So here's one of my favorite. Saga'igan. Oh gosh, I had a dream about this. So pay attention to your dreams, you guys. If you can, you know, your helpers, one way to say that in Ojibwe, your spirit helpers, you'd say Indino Taganug, my ones that hear me. So I'm going to offer Sema Migwich Girayawan Manungum, Nuyayawan Mazaga Ikan, Migwich Gamijang or Nundanansikwe Indigo. So I'm telling this plant who I am. Now I'm going to use this as a medicine. This is a really powerful one, and I want to let you know how this works. It's not one that'll make you sick. It's gentle. This one, in English, we call cleavers or bedstraw. They're the same genus. So see how it sticks? That's why they call it saga, like it sticks in Ojibwe, because it really does. It sticks. You can use it fresh, or you can use it dried. So this is one I had a dream about. Pay attention to your dreams. So one day, this friend of mine called me in the morning, woke me up on the phone, and she goes, "Hey, Hope, you've been dreaming about plants?" I go, "I haven't had a dream about a plant in so long, except for last night." I dreamt I was in this lodge, and they told me I had to go pick this plant. So cleavers or bedstraw is the name of this plant. Now here's how this plant works. You know how you've got places in your body they call lymph glands, and those lymph glands clean out toxins. That's what this one does. So it'll try to pull out toxins that you got, like in your armpits, like in your glands, even your thyroid. Helps your thyroid. This is a really good one. But now check this out. I'm just learning about this. There's a whole thing called phytoremediation, which means plants try to help clean Mother Earth just like they help clean us. And they do the same thing to her. They clean her just like they clean us. So what that means, sometimes they break down the toxins. Sometimes they vaporize them. Sometimes they store them in their own bodies to help Mother Earth, to help us. So be careful where you pick, because if you pick something like this and that plant is working really hard to help Mother Earth, you know, like to absorb toxins or to break down toxins, there might be a lot of toxins in there. So that's one reason you might have had a grandma or grandpa a long time ago say, if you go picking way away, you know, go picking out in the woods, go picking out, you know, in a way away from all the cars and people and all that kind of stuff. And plus, the other thing is, you know, plants that are wild, they get to choose where they want to grow, and they grow next to their buddies. And now science even knows that they're talking underground through their root systems, the mycorrhizal connections, like the funguses help them talk to each other. So they'll talk to each other and support each other. So you can see this plant is growing around several different kinds of plants. It's growing around stinging nettles, which is a good one, full of vitamins. It's growing near tall goldenrod. And now it's growing near this little bitty one right here This little one is called spotted touch-me-not or jewel weed. And that's one that they use for, like if you get stings, if you've got poison ivy, to take down histamine reaction. So this one is a really good one. For those of you who are trying to clean your system after maybe you've been abusing your system for a while. But here's the thing, you know, if you've been like going through some stuff, you know, you can't ask the plant to do all the work. That's part of the trouble with all this, is that we have to do as much work as the plants could ever do. So even though we said like, oh man, I'm just doing it 1 second at a time, good, 1 second at a time, that's all you need to do right now. Just one step forward, one step forward. I'm really thankful. Years ago, I got to listen to a fellow named Eugene Begay up from, he was up near LCO, and he was Ojibwe and Dene. And he had been visiting on Founders Day back when Dr. Bob and Bill W. were around. And I think it was, one of them had passed away, and Eugene was standing there, only native guy, all the rest are non-native people, you know, and he's standing there. He said he had to put on a suit and coat. He didn't even have one, but he wanted to be there because there's a bunch of non-native folks, you know, and he didn't want to look all rugged, you know. So he's there, and they stopped in the middle of the ceremony. And whichever one it was, I think it might have been Dr. Bob, I'm not sure which one lived the longer, said, you, and he pointed right at Eugene Begay, and he said, we learned these ways from your people. This is the native way of doing things. The talking circle with a feather is just like when you go to a sobriety meeting and nobody's king and nobody's queen and nobody's telling anybody else how to behave other than the sponsors, you know. That was a whole new way for those non-native folks to see we're all in this together, and everybody everybody has a voice and everybody has their own teachings. So if ever you feel like, oh, I can't go to meetings because it's not a native way, give it a try, because it really is. But that's up to you. Maybe your spirits, your helpers are going to say, no, you got to do it this way. Me, I go to meetings, it helps me. So this is one. This one's a good one. If you want to use one that's full of vitamins to fortify your system, stinging nettles right here, you're going like, oh my gosh, why is she touching that? She's going to get all bumpy and itchy. And I'm like, yeah, I'm used to it nowadays because I've been around it so much that it doesn't bother me so much. But another one for cleansing, here you go, wild grape. Now, some of you, like I remember when I was little, we would go pick these. Me and my sister and my mom, we would go pick wild grapes. And if you go to some of the Middle Eastern stores, you'll see they have wild grape leaves that are wrapped around rice. These are edible, and they're kind of tart, they taste good. And then the roots are a gentle cleanser too. So you could use the roots. Make sure if you're gathering these things, you do your offering. Don't take anything without asking, because it'd be like if I said, hey, I want your life, honk. I don't have the right to do that. You know, that plant's having its life. Maybe it's helping Mother Earth, maybe it's helping the plants around it. We're all here for a purpose, every single one of us. Every single one of these plants is here for a purpose, just like you're here for a purpose. And maybe you're feeling like, oh no, I just lived such a rugged life, I'm not worth anything. I know I felt that before. Maybe you just don't know yet. All you have to do is know the next step, that next minute, and then the next minute, and then the next minute, and you get showed. That's why on some of those songs, on some of those prayer songs, you might hear, Nigani, Nigani Asema. We're asking for guidance. Just show me the next right step. That's all. You don't have to know what's going to happen in an hour. You just know what you need to do this next second. You know, that's all you really got anyway. So just listen for that next moment. So wild grape, you can eat that or use the roots. Here we've got a box elder. This is in the maple family. We used to tap all the different kinds of maples, not just the sugar maples. The sugar maples we would tap because they have the highest quantity of sugar in them, but especially like our relatives that were Dakota or from some of the southern areas, they might tap silver maples or box elders, get that sap, boil it down, get that sugar. And that was because it's higher in iron, and then it doesn't have all the chemicals boiled out of it, so it has nutrition in it still. Like the first sap, we consider that medicine. That first sap of the tree, just a little bit sweet, but it's that power of that tree, the lifeblood of the tree. You get in when you drink that. So here's an example of a plant that's non-native. This one right here. This one's called garlic mustard, and that's a non-native plant, so it doesn't have an Ojibwe name to it. But people would pick this. So I had an intern of mine that came down to the river here and would pick this, and then she'd bring it to a fancy restaurant, to the Alma restaurant, and sell it to them. So that's something, if you're just getting clean and you're looking for something to do, that's not a bad thing. Right now, Sean Sherman he works with the food lab and is doing different kinds of native foods. He now has put out a list of things you can go gather and bring to him, and then he'll pay you for them if you'd like to go out in the woods. Yeah. And then you could earn a little, well, you could say Junia or Mazaska on the side, and it's a time to be out in the woods, healing a little bit. These plants aren't going to judge you. They're not going to say, oh, look what you did. You haven't even done your 4th step yet. Like, wait a minute, I'm working on it. You know, they love you unconditionally. So if you ever hear that word, Joanim, so that means to love somebody unconditionally, just unconditionally, just like how the Creator loves us. So some different ways you might hear how to say Creator. You might hear Manidu Naganizid, the leading spirit. Gije Manidu, the loving spirit. Gichi Manidu, the great spirit. Maybe you're not Ojibwe, maybe you hear Wakantanka, maybe you hear like the great mystery, but there's no judgment in that. There's nobody saying, oh, you're not good enough, ever. You're here for a reason. So it's just a matter of no matter where you went, your challenge. Here's another little relative of that the stinging nettle. This one's called woodland nettle. So you can dry it and make it into a tea, or you can just boil it up and make it into a nice vegetable broth if you're trying to like fortify your system. So this one, if you ever hear a net lake, N-E-T-T lake, Boys Fort, that's what it's referring to, N-E-T-T for nettles, because here's last year's old stock. I won't be able to show you too well last year's old stock, but nettles from Net Lake was how we used to make our old fish nets from this. Ignatia Broker showed me this, that lady who wrote Night Flying Woman years and years ago. This is to see how it's really fibrous. We used to make our fish nets out of this. And you can make cloth out of this. And the same plant grows over there in Nepal, and those native people, they use it for making cloth. Nobody does here. We could. So why not? And actually it worked better than the non-native twine that first came to our people. So you can eat it, you can dry it, make a tea out of it. Again, for me, I have to be careful because when I do this one, I'll drink it. I love the flavor of it. You can make a boiled green like spinach, and it's even more nutritious than spinach because it's so high in vitamin K. But I'll get an itchy spot the next day because I don't know if any of you have ever touched nettles. You go like, oh no, I got an itchy spot and little white dots and stuff. It goes away pretty quick. So the other way to use it is like this, like fish nets. So you can make your own net. And if somebody got really inspired, look, it's all over here. This is the time of year to pick it. Actually, I'll be picking it for my job right now is I work at Iww Wild Health, and I teach native kids about picking things out in the wild. So, and then we have a farm and we raise healthy foods, so we teach them about growing their own healthy foods. So this last week I've been picking wild onions, wild leeks, and fiddlehead ferns. And then we put it in our food boxes and make sure those food boxes get out to Native people. Because we used to eat healthy. It wasn't until people were being controlled through food, and that's what it was, is people were always controlled through access to food. So now we got to reclaim that and have what we call food sovereignty. Okay, here's a little, just a little, a reminder about how things can be. So this is European buckthorn, and it really pushes out the natives. Does that sound familiar? Ick. But there are plants, they come from somewhere where they had controls, like different plants that would not let them push out the native species. When they come to this land, they don't know how to act. And you see that with birds, you see that with insects. You might say you see it with people, is that they forget that there's bones of our grandparents here, you know, our relatives are all in this soil. So right now, you'll look over here, and this area here should be just full of diversity, but it's not, because the European buckthorn has pushed out a lot of the native plants. So just the way that we keep seeing the same paradigms, the same patterns over and over again. So we've got to make sure that we provide areas where native plants like this is that jewelweed, and native plants like the woodland nettles, where they can thrive too, because every one of them has gifts. If we're not careful, they'll be gone, because these guys won't know. I'm not trying to villainize them, I'm just saying they don't know how to act here in a respectful way.
Well, we should all be back now. And that was just so much fun. Let's see if folks have questions, or Hope, if you want to expand on anything that you wanted to talk about out there in the beautiful sunshine.
Sure. I'm so thankful to be able to work with plants. I didn't go into much about how well that our old ways would fit with addressing some of the challenges of recovery or positive mental health. We had lots of different techniques of dealing with some of our personal challenges. What we're coming on right now is the time for fasting. Usually where the community that I go up to, we have fasting time over the end of May, like Memorial Weekend. It didn't used to always be the end of May, but it was generally this time of year. What would happen is, because right now there's no bugs out much, you're not going to really suffer with mosquitoes. It's warm enough where you're not going to lose any fingers or toes in Minnesota. But it's a time where you would prepare for this, and it's not something you just do on the spur of the moment. Sometimes you would talk to somebody, sometimes a family member or an elder, about going out and fasting to find out, to find your vision. And sometimes people would do it when they were younger. Nowadays it could be somebody who's older. I know I didn't get to fast until I was older than how it used to be back in the day, when you might just as a boy or a girl go out, and what the idea is you're put out somewhere. Nowadays where I go, you get put out on an island out by Rainy River in Canada, and then you're there for 4 days, no food or water, and you're looking for a dream. You're looking for your helpers to show up. So you find out so much, because there's no distractions, there's no cell phones, there's no anything. You're there with yourself, with the creator, with the plants, with the spirits, and you're asking for help. And it's a beautiful thing, because you're kind of doing that sought through prayer and meditation to find a conscious contact, and that's what you're doing. That's what it is. I mean, I know I'm using a lot of 12-step words, but it's the old style way of you're getting quiet enough to listen. And a lot of us in this society, we don't ever do that. We never take time to think about really what's essential. So if you're sitting there on an island for 4 days, I mean, the first day isn't so hard. The second day can get really hard because you're thirsty, and you're hungry, and you might start to feel not so good. The third day, you're realizing some of your limits and your challenges. The fourth day, you're starting to feel like, oh my gosh, I'm stronger than I thought I was. And you know that you're going to go back. You're going to go back and visit with elders. They're going to do a sweat where you're going to even have less water in your body, but you're going to get clarity, so the idea is this process. And then there's a feast, and then you get to share with the community or whoever was out there with you, your dreams and what you saw and what you experienced. And that way you kind of know that you're not in this alone. You're not alone anymore. You're with people that are on this spiritual journey, this journey of clearing out those toxins, clearing out those distractions, finding out, like, why am I here on this earth? Because that's what you're always asking, right? So I love this time of year because it's in our way of thinking right now. This is the beginning of the year when the plants start to come up again. So this is the new year. So when you talk about how old you are, you say, this is how many winters I survived. That's how you say it in the language. So then when the season starts to come around again and it's spring, now you get to really reflect on, why are you here and what are you going to do while you're here? So one of the ways, I don't know if there's any questions, and I should stop right there, or should I continue?
You go ahead, and then we'll get to the questions. We've got lots of
Okay.
time.
Okay, great. So this is what I was taught. It's like, before we come to this earth, our spirit it exists on a different dimension. And you'll hear it all the time, like the elders that I talk about, there's 4 dimensions above, there's 4 dimensions below, but we're here on this earth. And before you come here, you're in the spirit world, and you visit with these 7 grandfathers. And you might picture them as grandfathers, or maybe they're grandmothers, or maybe they're orbs of light, or whatever. Maybe they're angels, doesn't matter, same thing. So you talk to them about what your mission is going to be here while you get to this earth. Like, what do you want to learn and what do you want to teach? What are you going to learn? What are you going to teach? And then you choose who's going to be with you, like who's going to be your mom, who's going to be your dad. Then you get here, and in the spirit world, they have different time than we have. So you might look at it, go like, oh my gosh, 100 years, that's a flick of the wrist, that's nothing at all. But because in the spirit world, they don't have time. And even in our languages, time is completely looked at differently. It's not linear, it's not second by second. So it's definitely something that you can travel this way, or you can travel that way. It's not, oh, miigwech. I'm so glad to hear some people are listening here. So when you say, oh, I'm going to come to that earth, and it won't be very long, it's only going to be at most 100 years. So here you come here, but here you don't remember what your contract was. You don't remember what you talked to those grandfathers about. So you get here and you're a little baby. You're like, oh no, I don't know how to move my arms. I don't know how to move my legs. I don't know how to talk. So you cry. You're, now here's my body. I would say, ne means me, yao, my body, ne yao. And then I'm crying because I got here like, oh my goodness, I can't do anything. I'm just a baby. So niao wah 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 wah. Niao wah means you're crying to find out why you're here. So your niao wah, most of you, or some of you who are Ojibwe, probably heard the word wah before. Your wah is your namer, the person who found your name, and they really found out, why are you here? So when you get your name, you go to an elder and maybe you bring them tobacco and blankets and silver and you make a food for them. Depends on the elder that you talk to. And they're going to dream and find out what your name is. So when you get your name, you start to find out why you're here. So somebody might come and say, oh, I'm here, like for me, Nudanesikwe. That means little wind woman. So there was an elder in the community. Her job was to look for plants and help children. So guess what my job is? It's not to be having a big old ego to say, look at me, I'm doing the Nancy. No, I get out of the way and I let Nancy. I have to do Nancy's work. That's how these names work. You get your ego out of there and now you've got a job to do. So in the native way, you're not trying to earn status, you're earning responsibility. So now for the rest of my life, that's what I get to do. I get to do the same things that Nudanensikwe did before me, and she did what Nudanensikwe did before her, and she did what Nudanensikwe did before her, and on and on and on and on. And it probably goes the other way too. If this keeps on going, there'll be another Nudanensikwe that does what I'm doing, and then another. So this body, this physical expression of hope really isn't all that important. It's the work that we do, the good that we can do while we're here. So suppose you get the name, let's pick one like Misko Benesik, like maybe you're Red Bird Woman. And in your teachings that Red Bird Woman is a helper for someone who's really sick. Because sometimes Red Bird Woman would be someone who helps somebody on their 4-day journey to the next world, to the spirit world. Or maybe I recently talked to a Dakota man who explained to me, suppose you have the Indian name of Morning Star Woman, just like in the Ho Chunk way and in the Ojibwe way. If you have the name Morning Star Woman, if they find your name and that's it, your job is to listen to women's challenges and experiences, because that's what the morning star does, the planet Venus. When I was young, I remember hearing from a Dakota lady, a Lakota lady, and an Ojibwe lady, go out and tell your troubles to the morning star woman. Because she's sitting there, like the morning star. She's going to listen to you. Just like you can tell your troubles to Dibikagisis, Nukomis, the grandma moon. She's going to listen, and then you get quiet and listen to what she has to tell to you. So depending on what your name is, as you go through this process, you'll get clues along the way of how to navigate some of the challenges. In my stories and what I hear, this earth is not vacation. We're not here to like, la, 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 to just be all happy and comfortable. We're here to teach, or we're here to learn. So the two elders that taught me that and have taught me over and over again that same teaching, Lillian Rice, Ogimakwe Iban, and now Nancy Jones, Ogima Gwinebik, her and Majiki Kwewesiban, Rose Barstow, they all did that. Like, you're here to teach and you're here to learn. You're here to help, do the best you can. So if you phrase it that way, you take your ego out of it, you forget about like the ones with the most toys win. No way. Part of the stories that I heard is when you love your things, you have to carry them to the next world. So can you imagine? Oh my gosh. When I was young in this community in Minneapolis, St. Paul, if somebody said, oh, gee, I sure like your earrings, you know what you're supposed to do? Take them off and give them to that person. Because if you don't, they know that you love your things. And that makes you weak. Because if you love your things are more important than people, than love, than kindness, than family. So you've shown that you're dependent on those things. Those things aren't going to love you back. And most of like in most Native communities, it's always that way. It always was that way. You don't hear it so much anymore. You say, oh, gee, I sure like your ring. Here you go. Here you go. You can have it. Don't fall in love with your things. If ever you seem to be falling in love with things, give it away. Make sure you have a giveaway. Not that long ago, we used to have giveaways all the time. Like I remember going to Big Drum and back in the 70s, and they would have like to celebrate, you would do a giveaway, like say you give away those things to show that you aren't owned by your things. And sometimes in a ceremony like that, when you had your giveaway, things would come right back to you. Like people would do the dance, and then the ones at the ceremony would start putting down things right away to say, oh, look, she gave away everything. Her spirit helpers are strong. She trusts the creator. So you'd start getting things right away. People would start recognizing how strong you were, that you weren't so dependent on your physical objects. I remember I had a student, she was a 12-year-old young lady who bow and arrow, she got her first deer. So she had a giveaway. And that was, like, honorable. The more you could give away, you were showing, see, look at, my spirit helpers, the creator takes care of me. I know my connections. I know that I have help. So that way, when you see that, you see, oh my gosh, she's not owned by her things. It was one of the ways to remind us that ego wasn't such a thing to hang on to and put up as the most important being. Also, you might hear about people earning new names. It's not a thing of ego either, because when you earn a new name or you're given a new name, usually it's because you have a major challenge and now you're a new person. So when you get a new name, like suppose one of the fellows that I work with, he has 4 Indian names. He's gone through 4 major challenges. He's taken on 4 major responsibilities. So it's really not easy. I mean, if you get more responsibilities, now you've got to feast those things. You have to offer them tobacco, food, thank them. You have to sing for them. You can't just put them aside and say, look, I got it on my wall, now it's mine. No, they're living beings. In the language, all these things like a feather, a drum, those are alive. Just like the plants are alive. You can't just put them up on the wall and forget about them. You have to offer them food and water. Not every day, but you can think about them as like, these are living beings. And then you have to spend time with them to make sure that they're charged up. I know I've been talking a whole lot. Is there any questions here?
Yeah, we do have a couple questions. Irene, would you like to go ahead and ask your question? Or would you prefer me to read it?
I can ask it.
Thank you.
Yeah, Bonjour, Hope.
Oh, bonjour.
Let's see.
Where are you from,
God.
Irene?
Yeah, sorry, I had like a brain fart. Oh my goodness.
That's all right.
I'm originally from LCO, and then my family moved to my dad's tribe to Ajamug, so Lake Lena. I've been in the cities a few years now, and I've seen you speak a couple times now, and so it's nice to see you and receive some of your teachings today. So Chimigwich, and it felt very, I think, like home when you were talking, and so I really want to thank you for that. And
thank you.
I would love to connect with you actually at another point too, just because I've been in the realm of helping and healing the last few years. And in a way, I feel like I have been in like a training. I mean, I have in a Western sense too, but I'm also thirsty for some Indigenous ways of providing healing space for folks. And so I work at the American Indian Family Center with Maria McCoy and Nelda, who I also see are here. And I guess some of the things I'm wondering about, and it's come up a few times, is folks and their use of hemp and cannabis and as a way of medicine. And I've heard different things, and it's okay if you don't want to answer.
No, I would love to answer that, because I've run into that a lot. And I can only give you my version. my version is that fellow that I just talked about that has 4 names. He had gotten away from alcohol, but he wasn't giving up cannabis. Now, cannabis is not native. People want to believe that it's native. It was brought over here for making twine by George Washington. There is a plant called Indian hemp. It has nothing to do with cannabis. It's in the dogbane family, and that's really a powerful heart medicine. But cannabis, I want to tell you about that fellow who has the 4 names. He went to ceremony, he went to a shake tent, and he walked by the shake tent man, and the shake man pointed at him and he said, "You got to quit that." He said, "What are you talking about?" He said, "I see what's inside of you and you got to get rid of that." And this was up in Canada. And he said, "What are you talking, what do you want me to do?" He said, "Bring me tobacco." So he went to him and he did that sucking ceremony, spit it out into a silver bowl. And he said, "That right there, that's the spirit of weed. You can't go around doing ceremonies when that spirit of weed is in you, because it's clouding your spirit." So I go by that one. I go by that teaching. So I personally, I know, that's something that was passed to me, because I've seen people do like, "Oh, gee, I'm going to get off alcohol, but I'm just going to do weed instead." But I see how it affects the kids too. I mean, this is my personal reaction to that. And once he told me that story, and he said I had to quit that weed because that spirit was in me. And I know it gets into your cellular being. So it's a tough one. I know there's going to be people that say, no, 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 it'll do the trick. I personally can't afford to, I can't afford to do anything that's going to mess up my clarity, because I want my spirit to be as clear as earthly possible. Because I'm working with other spirits and I've got to be conscientious about like what's going on. I tell you, 2 weeks ago, someone brought some stuff to me and said, "This is bad medicine. How do I deal with it?" I want to be as clear as earthly possible to know, what do I need to do? How can I listen and know that whatever I'm getting is clear from the creator, from the spirits that are helping me.
Yeah, thank you so much, Hope. Yes, that makes lots of sense. And I've definitely have heard different thoughts and feelings around hemp and cannabis. So thank you for sharing your perspective. And if it's okay, I might reach out to you at a later time just to see if you have some openings to
Oh, sure.
for
I
things.
work with Iww Wild Health. So that's Neely, who was a Churchill on one side of her family from St. Croix band. She's my boss.
Oh,
Yeah.
cool. All right. Thank you. Well, I have to head out. I hope to talk to you soon. Thank you, everyone, for holding this. This is an awesome echo. Okay, Kigwabaman.
Eagle Wabaman.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I'm so glad Irene could be here. We're getting comments in the chat function that people are agreeing with your point of view. Maria, do you want to share your comment? Maria McCoy?
Hey, Maria.
Would you Hope? I agree with you. I thank you so much for sharing your thoughts on this matter. I hear young people tell me it's the creator's medicine. And I just see how much it dulls their way of being, and how it puts a barrier up between them and their spirits, where they can't fully be in touch with who they really are. So thank you. I really thank you for your thoughts on the plant.
Thank you, Maria. And I'm so glad for the work that you're doing. I know it's beautiful. And when I mentioned Ogimakwe Iban, that's Nelda Goodman's auntie, Lillian Rice. And I was so fortunate to spend time around her in the classroom for 6 years. And boy, oh boy, what a gift. Those elders that walked this life for so long, you could see that they knew it backwards and forwards. It wasn't any question. So I have to follow their ways. Thank you.
Wonderful. Does anyone else have a question? Maybe something you saw in the video or anything at all, a comment or a question you would like to just unmute and share with us?
I have a question for Hope. I was just wondering, what do you feel about, I know there's some places that are trying to restore native prairie lands and they're trying to eradicate the buckhorn trees out of there. Is that something you think they should do, or?
Oh gosh, yes. I work with a couple different programs. It's tough. Buckthorn is a tough one. Because when you pull it out, and we have our kids at the farm pull out buckthorn. I know that it's got they have a allelopathic. What that means is they have a chemistry that poisons the soil for other plants. So that way, just only they can thrive in the soil. So you have to get all the roots out, because even just a little bit, it looks like a real tangled black mass. If even just a little bit is there, it'll regenerate. We do have an American buckthorn. It's called alder-leafed buckthorn that doesn't do that. So it's not that it's a buckthorn, it's that it's so aggressive that it pushes out, like where I'm going to be working in a couple weeks is Bellwyn Conservancy in Afton, where all the understory is gone. All of those spring ephemeral medicines, like I'd say maybe up to 40 to 50 different kinds of plants are gone because the buckthorn has just pushed them out. And those are medicines and foods and utilitarian plants. And it's just really tough to see, because you'll see these gorgeous trees and then the understory is just wiped out. So yeah, we lose our options. We lose our possible medicines. We lose our possible gifts when so much is just wiped out, and there's just a monoculture of European buckthorn.
So how do you feel about walnut trees? I know I was told
They're
not to-
allelopathic too. Walnut trees are allelopathic too, but we have like native buckthorn. I mean, not buckthorn, native black walnuts. We have pig nuts, hickory nuts, things like that were native. And nuts, this was interesting. I saw a thing about like chimpanzees go to war just like humans do, and chimpanzees go to war over nut trees. So to me, that says a lot, because in nature, fats and proteins are not easy to come by. Usually you're going to get your proteins off of animals if there's enough animals around. But in countries that don't have that much animals anymore, like in the Asian countries, you're going to do beans or mushrooms. So you're limited to your access to proteins. So the chimpanzees would fight over nut trees and actually have wars over nut trees. Now, I think a lot of the controversies with humans in this world have been about resources, and you kind of can't see that. And the resources often end up being food resources. So for me, I know that black walnuts will put an allelopathic agency into the soil that will promote more black walnuts. Well, to me, they're a native tree, and you're going to get the walnuts, and you're going to get, if you have a tree, like a fairly decent black walnut tree, I mean, one of the things you can do is it can give it a different kind of a gift. So you can tap that tree and boil down the sap. You can make a walnut syrup. Or if you say, I don't want that tree anymore, people who make veneers truly value black walnut veneers. So you could sell a black walnut tree to $30,000 to $50,000 for one tree. So people want to get rid of their black walnut trees without thinking, well, what could I do? What are the gifts of this tree? So often it's like really looking at what's going on with the tree. I was so happy yesterday. I was down at Dakota Pond Mission for looking for the spring ephemerals, and they're pretty much done right now. But I noticed on one side of the path, it was just solid European buckthorn. On the other side of the plant, it was pignut and black walnut. Now, I would much rather have pignut and black walnut, because the pignut and black walnut are going to sustain squirrels, deer, animals, birds. the trouble with European buckthorn is it's going to do the same thing to us that it does to birds. If you eat the berries, it's going to go right through, you're going to have diarrhea and you're going to lose nutrition. That happens to the birds too. So even though it looks like the birds are going to be eating the berries, if you notice, they don't, because they're not able to migrate. If they're going to eat a bunch of European buckthorn berries, it runs right through them, takes out nutrition. So it decreases their strength rather than increasing their strength. So nuts are going to give you something where, okay, now, some of the birds that can get into the nuts, of course, not easy with the black walnuts, but for like the pig nuts and hickory nuts, they can get in there and get the fats and the nutrients, just like us. So for us at the farm, we haven't planted any pig nuts or hickory nuts, but I noticed north of there, say like at Wild River State Park, that the hickory nuts are really expanding. They're going south, or I'm sorry, they're going north because of climate change. So the nut trees are expanding, which might be helpful as other things can't take on the heat.
Thank you. The other question I had, you talked about all the nutrition that's in stinging nettles. How do you boil it, drink
Yep.
it, or?
I boil it, just stinging nettles and woodland nettles, both high in nutrition. Get some water, boil it. You don't have to leave it in there till it disintegrates, because it will. The woodland nettles will disintegrate where they just like green mush. But take it out and just a few minutes, just let them boil enough so that the chemistry of it detoxifies. So you'll get enough in there to. Some people just swear by it for arthritis. So if you let it boil, it's going to take down some of that stinging essence, and then it's good to go.
Then
Or
you drink
dry it, either way.
Then you drink the tea, or?
You can drink it. You can use it as a vegetable broth. Often what I've done is just make it like spinach, like boiled spinach. Same thing, and a little bit higher in nutritional value than spinach. So just boil it, let it, if you're not comfortable, you can experiment around a little bit and let it go a little longer, but you don't have to boil it till it just breaks down and is nothing, like mush. Just let it boil long enough so that it takes the sting out, and then you're good to go. I'm not good with time. I'm not good with time. I've done it a lot, but I'm not good with time.
Thank you.
I've thought in terms of some of the people that are doing wild foods, like Sam Thayer is a big proponent of black walnuts. So very few people are doing much with black walnuts anymore. When I was younger, you used to see it more commonly, like black walnut ice cream, black walnut. I'm thinking that some of the chefs could really have fun working more with black walnut desserts and things like that, or just beefing the proteins and fats up in foods.
They are a lot of work, but they're worth it.
Yes.
We've got one in our neighbor's backyard, so they're all over our yard. Yeah, they keep the squirrels happy.
We use them for making dyes too. So if ever
Yes.
you've seen.
Yes, our sidewalk turns, and the roof gets all black or dark brown. It's quite amazing. Any other
Hand
comments?
drums.
Oh,
sorry.
yeah.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments? We've got a little more time if you'd like. We've got plenty of time. I know that some people have had to run to go and do some other work, but I'm so glad you're all here. Yes, Nelda.
Hi, I was interrupted with a couple phone calls, so I was in and out of Zoom here, and some poor planning on my part. It's like, anyway, I want to say thank you for having Hope. I signed up last week, and I was just excited to hear her. She's always so full of laughter, and she's always got some new tips. She is a mentee of my auntie, so that's in the spirit world now. So yeah, she shares some good knowledge. She had an awesome teacher. So And say thank you, Hope, for sharing what what's been passed on to you. So that's
Thank you, Nelda. I
good.
did mention, I said Nelda's auntie was a dear one, and boy, oh boy, she showed how to be in this world in such a beautiful way. I'm so thankful, so thankful. And I just, when I was no longer with her, I just mourned because, but I tell you, I think of her all the time. I think of how she walked on this earth and with such grace and dignity and beauty and all the lessons that she taught me. One thing that I carry with me almost every day is I remember when she said, I don't know why I'm still here, but I must have something I need to learn or that I need to teach. And that was such a beautiful lesson. And she walked with such grace around, like going through rough times, but walking with such joy, because you'd see her and she'd always have some reason to joke around and have fun and be playful, but strict about sobriety. Oh my gosh. You know, she knew the importance of living in a sober way. It was beautiful.
I want to see if, Jesse, would you mind unmuting and asking your question? Because I don't think that we've shared anything on what you want to know more about.
Sure. Here I am. Hi, Hope. Thanks again for doing all of this for us. We were only together for a short time, but it was so much fun. I was wondering if you had any tips for like foraging beginners. I know Rebecca talked this morning about how she has made dandelion salads, and I know I have a pet rabbit. He loves dandelions and clovers and all of that. But I get so worried about like pesticides and chemicals, and how do you know where are safe spaces to gather these plants and use them?
Gee, that's not an easy one. I know one of the things that I do is one of the places that I feel okay about going to is wildlife management areas, because in wildlife management areas they're there to allow people to hunt, you know, but they're not saying anything about not picking. So, but I always like count 10, pick one.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then do your offering, do your like thank you for what's here. I know that it can be a challenge to find clean spaces where you know that you're absolutely sure that nobody's been spraying or nobody's put toxins here. I think we're making some progress, at least with food. It feels like people are being more conscientious about like, let's make sure nobody's spraying pesticides, herbicides, you know, whatever on what's slated for food. But if you want to look at, if you're looking at a fruit or a vegetable, make sure that it has 9 as on the sticker. There should be the number 9. That means that there's no pesticides, no herbicides, that kind of a thing. That'll mean that if it's a 4, it's been compromised. If it's a 3, it's really been compromised. If it's a 1, don't eat it. You know? So it goes like that. It is tough, and it's getting tougher and tougher to find places. And now I'm finding, you know, that some of the states have pretty strict limitations. Like I was down in Florida visiting, and I had stayed there for a while years ago, and there were no restrictions on picking then. And now it's illegal. They'll talk about it's illegal to pick. And I found that to be true in Arizona too, that they were saying it's illegal to pick. So in some of the different states, they're making rules to protect diversity, which, you know, I can kind of understand some of it, because with climate change, we see the pressure on diversity. So try to find some areas that are pretty healthy, and it's not going to be easy. I know they're trying to shift some of the laws around a little bit, to, in Minnesota at least, for Native folks to have access to some of the different national forests for foraging. So that's something to consider. I'm sorry, I wish I had more positive information about that.
That's okay. I've always assumed deeper in the woods, the better. So
Yes,
more adventures
that's what
seeing
I
that.
think.
Yeah.
That's the way I feel about it, is head back in the woods and try to find places that you can almost feel it sometimes, like this
Mhm.
feels cleaner.
Yes.
know.
Untouched a little bit.
Yes, yeah. I
Thank
think
you.
those kind of places are full of healing too.
Mhm.
I had a question regarding, it's kind of more of like what comes first, the chicken or the egg. It's, you were talking about like, if you're using substances or under the influence of substances, you know, don't go out and be, I guess, was it more of you were saying, don't be picking and foraging? Because it would be fine to be under substances to actually commune with nature, because I'm thinking that nature is the healer.
Right.
So you can be in nature, but don't be asking for their gifts other than what they're speaking to you when you're actually in the presence.
I guess, yeah, I definitely should be more clear about that. What I think happens is you're like your first year of sobriety. You know, they always say don't make major changes your first year. And I truly do believe that, because you're not clear yet. So, I mean, it'd be easy, you know, if you're trying to work with the spirit of the plant, and really that's what a long time ago, you would work some with the biology of the plant, but also with the spirit of the plant. So some people would work almost entirely with the spirit of the plant, and some people would work almost entirely with the biology of the plant. Long time ago, it was more this than this. So this can be confusing if you're not really clear. So that's what I'm trying to get at, I guess. You might say, oh, gee, like I'm being attracted to this plant, and you know, well, why don't I experiment around a little bit with it? It's hallucinogenic, you know, or something like that. You probably want to make sure that your system is really cleaned out. And you know, it's hard at first, for me it was, at least, maybe it's different for other people. It was hard to judge, to be able to see what is a clear thought, you know, even to decide what is a clear thought at that time. When I was first getting clean, it was really hard to say, oh, that's a good thought. I wasn't making good choices, that's for sure. So I needed to find a way to judge what was coming in and what was acceptable. So it can be tough. I mean, people sometimes want to go right in and jump right in and do spiritual work, or, you know, commune with the spirits. And sometimes it's really tough when you're first sober, because you don't have that clarity yet. You don't have that way of saying, oh yeah, this is positive information that I'm receiving. Does that make sense? And that's a tough one, but it's true. I know I was like, well, I don't know. Is this who I'm supposed to be listening to? Or is it my own self-talk wants to hear this? I remember
I guess I'm just thinking of people that are like, haven't maybe even begun their recovery process yet, but they're wanting to detoxify. And I'm thinking, how would they do that if they're continually using, you know, it's not like they're just using one day and then they have a break and they can go forage. They would be using consistently, and then so they would not be able to utilize the, I guess, the detoxifying, if they're picking it themselves, if they're picking it under the influence.
If it's a little tough, because it's harder to hear the spirit of the plant, and I'm always listening for that. Some of you might know what I'm talking about, where you go like, oh, me over here, pick me. You start to hear that, you know, like, whoa, okay, you know, but it takes a while, and it takes some practice, you know. I'm not trying to say don't use healthy plants. I think you need to get healthy food in your body and start to clean, you know, you want to clean out that. clean through visualization, like even put your, like I said, put your back up against those trees and let it wash through you. And that, yeah, do that. Those are wonderful things. But I wouldn't say people are instantaneous medicine healers just because they've got a day of sobriety. You know what I mean? Be patient and let yourself get really clean. Like give yourself a year to start listening to what's coming through. I don't know if that makes sense.
That makes sense.
Well,
That's
and
what I'm really getting at.
I was going to say that it seems that the more I immerse myself in a Native community, I find that there are more and more experts. There's a lot of knowledge out there. And so maybe having people bring that healing substance to you from nature when you're in the beginning of your recovery path. And also just learning from lots of people. I've been doing that kind of thing, even though I'm not Native. There's so much that resonates from one culture to the other that I find to be so valuable and validating, right? We've had this knowledge, we've had it for eons, and we just need to listen. And if we can learn to listen by immersing ourselves in Native traditions, I think that we'll all benefit from that. So yeah, I was going to say, I would, there's so many people that you can trust that could help you find your way and use some of these plants and beings to help us.
I do want to say too that there's quite a continuum from something as mild as burdock root to something that you just, you could really injure yourself if you're trying some of these really strong medicines and don't know how to use it effectively. So, I mean, there's a great continuum of it. And I'm not trying to say, oh, you're getting clean, you shouldn't dig burdock root. No, that's a wonderful thing to do. Go dig burdock root, go, work in the soil, get those foods, get those roots, whatever, but don't try to like, oh my gosh, here, this one's toxic if you get this much of it, you've got to be careful. I guess that's part of what I'm trying to say.
Good. Thank you. Anyone else have questions or comments? I love this give and take conversation. Maria, please.
Do you have any suggestion for plants? If people have had kind of a reaction to the vaccine, to kind of bring their immune system back into balance?
I would think that the one that cleavers or bedstraw is such a good lymph cleaner, and that's like a deep clean. That's what I would do. And it's not a harmful one either. I've never seen anybody like have a bad reaction to it. And that way, as you're decreasing some of the residual toxins you might have in your system, that'll pull them out, that might help to decrease your toxic load. Are you running into quite a few people that are having challenges with vaccination?
It's me, Hope. I've had a reaction to it 2 months out now. And would you suggest a cup in the morning and a cup at night?
Yep, a cup in the morning and a cup at night. That's what I would do.
That's the one that sticks to you, right?
Right. Yeah.
Hey, Miigwech.
Yeah. Gee, I'm so sorry. That's a tough one.
You said Dream of Wild Health works. You're doing teachings to the kids. Do they have adult programming as well for adults?
We usually do, but we haven't really reinstated things since COVID hit. Usually we always would have volunteer Fridays and people could come out and work with the plants and learn from the staff. But right now we've kind of cut that way back because we just want to make sure we have a safe environment. We were able to stay open last summer, but we were again trying to make sure that there weren't a whole bunch of people out there so that there was security and safety, you know. So yeah, it hasn't been a thing where we've been doing as much as we used to do. So we still do what we can, but I think as it opens up more, we'll be able to do more again.
And then does Dream of Wild Health, do they sell their SEMA or because there's a lot of people, many of my friends included, that were utilizing commercial tobacco for our offerings. And I actually don't have any plants growing in our backyard. And so I'm just wondering if you also have explanations of how people would grow it and then how they would dry it and then how they would actually break it down for use for offerings and for themselves for their use.
Yay. We're just starting to do talks about that with Lucas Humboldt. If you contact Kateri Tuttle, she'll arrange that. And he's been growing out different. This last year we grew out Mohawk, Oneida, Potawatomi, and Ho-Chunk tobaccos. So then his job lately has been, growing the tobacco, making it, breaking it down, the whole thing. So and he does presentations about it too. So Kateri is organizing that, Kateri Tuttle. So yeah, he'll come out and talk about it. And usually he'll bring some too. So but I would talk to her and see if you could get a presentation with him, and then he can tell you more about that.
Well, and then do you sell your tobacco as well or no?
No, we don't sell it. We don't we can give it away, but we don't sell it. And we don't we have to be careful with seeds because the seed keepers like Jessica Green Deer, the way she was taught in the Ho-Chunk way is once you start raising that tobacco, you do that for the rest of your life. You can't put it down. And for women, they have a lot of restrictions about women with tobacco because it is true that when you touch the tobacco, it's so strong that it goes systemically. So if you were pregnant or, if you're carrying, it could, just like it says on the side of a cigarette pack, that it can affect the baby. So that's one of the reasons why it was man to son, it's considered a men's plant. If you're past childbearing years, check with your community because some people will say, if you're past those years, then you can go back to growing or you can grow tobacco, but usually just check with your families too. I don't ever want to step on anybody's traditional beliefs.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, Hope, I know we're not quite at 2:00, but I think that unless we've got some other questions, I just want to say thank you for bringing your spirit and your enthusiasm and your knowledge and sharing it with us today and with the walk last week. And hopefully it won't be the last time that we spend time together. I'm going to do one more check to see. Anyone else want to say anything before we wrap things up?
I would like to add something.
Yes, please go ahead.
Hope, you're really great. I've become a naturalist myself. I'm a pure specialist. I'm a former really hardcore cocaine addict. So I work at 1800. Normally I operate the DART Wellness Center, the diversion and recovery team, helping the addicted homeless, chronically addicted, chronically homeless. But Maria, so thank you so much. I mean, I would love to spend lots of time with you, walk through the woods and learn stuff. So, but Maria, that being said, I'm constantly watching, I'm kind of a lecture and documentary junkie, all forms of health. So I've been following the adverse reactions, and there's a lot of doctors all over the world, and the general consensus that I've heard, if people are having trouble, there's some main things, which is to get your vitamin D checked. That's number one. That they've pretty much determined that pretty much almost everybody that's died from COVID and people that are having adverse reactions, almost universally, they're really, really low on vitamin D. And years ago when they came out, when it got popular, everybody says, yeah, we need our vitamin D, especially in the Northern Hemisphere where we got a lot of, the cloudy winter. So then, as you know, they started talking about vitamin D3. We were taking vitamin D2. So D3 is more assumable. But then over the years, and now it's even on Amazon, the good D3s, and they're not that expensive. They've found that the body doesn't really absorb it unless you've got vitamin K2. So I have it here myself, and I take 5,000 international units a day just for general health. And it might help you immensely, because I've heard many times that vitamin D will help up to 2,000. You need vitamin D for up to 2,000 different functions that the body needs to perform. The other thing that might help, they said to take, especially for adverse reactions with the vaccine, is to take vitamin C in the ascorbate form. Check on that. I'm pretty sure that's what I heard. Most of the vitamin C's, the cheap ones that you see in the store, are not the right form that's super assumable. So you're taking it, but you're peeing most of it out. They said to take it to bowel tolerance. So you have to experiment on your own. If you're getting really loose stool or diarrhea, you're taking too much. And then the other one is zinc. So big on vitamin D, zinc, and for the adverse reactions, also that powdered ascorbate vitamin C. But double check what I'm saying. As much as this was about plants, I could feel it for you. You said it's been like 2 months, so I wanted to share what I've learned, but don't take my word for it.
Thank you so much for that. I really appreciate that. That's wonderful feedback. I'm curious too, with your clients, do you have like recommendations for vitamin, like just being on top of holding that sobriety?
Well, I'm part of the DART team. I'm in my 5th year with the DART team. That question kind of deserves an explanation. We're the DART team, it's the diversion and recovery team. So our job is to divert people from overutilization of the emergency rooms. Some people in the winter, even when they don't want to really drink, maybe, let's hypothetically, but they'll get really drunk so they can get a warm bed and some meals in the emergency room. Well, if they're in there, I think that's a $3,000 stay overnight, whereas detox is $300, but even that was expensive. So we're diverting them from overutilization of the detoxes, the emergency room. And then, so it's diversion and recovery team. I'm the recovery part. We all are, but I'm a peer specialist. I facilitate groups. Our people have been chronically addicted for so long that we're lucky if we can get them to that level where we're talking about supplements. It's the first order of business is for some of them just to getting them to get to a point where they're eating 2-3 healthy meals a day. And then a lot of them, they don't have any money at all. So I wish we could have those conversations. I really do.
Thank you. Yeah, I really appreciate that. And thank you for your hard work. That's a tough work. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you.
Well, wow. You all do such good work, and I'm so proud to be a part of this community and to learn from you all every time we get together. I want to say thank you to Hope. Thank you to all of you for sharing your stories and your questions. And we will be following up with an evaluation. And your ideas and your feedback is important to us. It helps us find more and desired speakers like Hope. And we'll also want to just remind you that on May 25th, we are going to hear from Julie Williams on the Moms program up on White Earth. And the same time on Tuesday from noon to 2. And I hope you all have a wonderful day. And I want to thank you again. I guess that's it.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Hope. Thank you.
Thank you. This was fun.
It was. Bye.
See you.
you.
Thank you.